This is the Mountain and Prairie Podcast. I'm Ed Robertson. My guest today is Helen Rebanks. This conversation with Helen was recorded live and on stage at the 2025 Old Salt Festival, held on the Mannix Family Ranch in Helmville, Montana. If you were there, you know how special the moment was. If you weren't, well, I'm glad you're here now. Even though we were on a stage in front of a crowd, the conversation had the quiet, reflective feel of two friends talking over a kitchen table, which is fitting given how much of Helen's story centers around that most sacred of domestic spaces. Helen is the author of The Farmer's Wife, My Life in Days, a beautiful and deeply grounded book about food, family, work, and the often invisible labor that holds it all together. In this wide-ranging conversation, we talk about the joys and struggles of farm life, raising kids, writing honestly without self-pity, and why the kitchen table might just be the most important place in the world. Helen shares stories from her own life and reads a few powerful passages from the book, including one that could double as the Old Salt manifesto. A huge thank you to Cole Mannix, the Mannix family, and the Old Salt crew for making this event and this conversation possible. It's not every day that a best-selling British author makes the trek to a working ranch in western Montana, but Helen did just that, along with her husband James and two of their 4 children, Molly and Tom. I'm so happy they made the journey, and I came away deeply grateful for the time we shared and the conversations we had. Whether you're a rancher, parent, reader, cook, or just someone trying to live a life of purpose and connection, Helen's story has something for you. Check out the episode notes for links to everything, and thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoy. Thank you all so much for being here, especially in the rain. You know, it's funny because the rain may not be perfectly ideal for a festival, but it's the best case scenario for the folks we're here to celebrate. So thank you all for being here. My name's Ed Robertson. You're probably wondering who is this guy with the southern accent up here. And my name's Ed. I started a podcast maybe almost 10 years ago called Mountain and Prairie, where I talk with interesting people in the American West and beyond about the work they do. And I've really grown interested in ranchers and ranching and regenerative agriculture, and that's what led me to this festival about 3 years ago. And so I've had the great pleasure of getting to interview some of my heroes on stage. And we've got one of my heroes here, Helen Rebanks. And Helen and her family, 2 of her 4 kids, came from all the way across the ocean from the Lake District of England to be with us here today. And Helen's a lot of things. She's the mother of 4. She and her husband, James, steward their family farm in England. She is a mother, she's a wife, and she is an unbelievable writer. And I came across her work. We share a mutual friend. We had not met. And our friend, Nick, he is a Wendell Berry disciple. He loves Wendell Berry. He loves great writing. He has very, very high standards for writing. And he sent me a message one time. He said, "Have you read Helen Rebanks' new book?" I said, "No, I haven't." He goes, "It's going to knock your socks off. It'll be there in 2 days." And I read it, and it did knock my socks off. And so I'm very, very honored that she's here. I'm honored that her family made it here. And we're going to talk about her life and her book, and I've got a million questions. But rather than me try to explain Helen and her life, I thought we were saying a good way to get started is let her start by reading the first few paragraphs of her amazing book, The Farmer's Wife. And that's going to give you kind of a good taste of her and what she's trying to do, and then we'll get into the conversation. And we'll have plenty of time for Q&A from you guys as well. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Ed. The cockerel crows, 5:30 a.m. I pull the blanket over my head, trying to hold on to the night just a little longer. Some days, there is a blurry moment just before I wake up when I exist in a dreamlike state. I forget which bit of my life this is, forget that I'm a mother and a wife, and that I have 1,000 things to do. I didn't always have these roles, but I knew them well. I grew up in a busy farmhouse. My bedroom was in the attic. Some mornings, I'd lie staring through the skylight to the clouds with a head full of teenage ideas about how I'd escape the farm. The noises of the kitchen would drift up the stairs, the kettle boiling, dogs barking, doors banging, Mum calling for help with the work or for me to get ready for school. I dreamed of being an artist and travelling, with days that opened out before me to create things, with lots of time to think and read. I didn't want the life of a farmer's wife. The women and girls worked indoors and smelled of soap. Their chores never ended, washing, ironing, cooking and cleaning. Men and boys did the outside work. They smelled of muck. They lived by a dirty, wet and cold routine of milking, feeding and shepherding, and didn't talk about much else. I hated the bind of the farm. But despite all my girlish ideas, I'm now here in my farmhouse on a hillside in the Lake District of England, just 6 miles from where I grew up. I live with my husband James, and we have 4 children, Molly, Bee, Isaac and Tom. There are also 6 sheepdogs, 2 ponies, 20 chickens, 500 sheep and 50 cattle to care for. I am a farmer's wife, and this is my story.
Thank you for reading that. Your voice and your accent are beautiful.
That's kind. Thank you so much.
Compared to my Eastern North Carolina, they're even more beautiful.
Brought a bit of England to Montana.
Well, I'm so curious about writers, and I'm also curious about farmers and people in the ag world. So you are kind of in this overlap of all the things that I'm interested in. And the book is structured in such an interesting way. It's structured around a day in your life, a very, very full day in your life. And could you just talk a bit about why you decided and how you decided to structure the book in the way you did? Because I think it's so unique and it makes it even more powerful.
Oh, thank you. It's structured over a busy day in my life, set around mid-May, when we just finished our lambing season, when life isn't about ourselves at all in any way, shape or form. It's about tending to the flock, feeding, checking the lambs. And I've interspersed the 4 sections of the day with memoirs, so stories about growing up, about essentially why I've chosen to live a life like my grandma, why I've chosen, and it's been a very introspective project, a very reflective project about thinking, in this modern world, why would I choose to run around after my family and spend most of my days thinking, what are we going to eat? Where are the kids? What does my husband need on the farm? That support role that I've, embraced wholeheartedly. And I've written sections of stories that have interwoven into the present day to kind of bring me through. I think I wrote the book for myself, essentially. I wrote it for me to kind of reflect on life's choices. Approaching midlife, you get to a point where you think, right, what am I doing here? What have I done to get to this point? Who am I? What matters? What does the next few years look like? I mean, I've thrown myself into raising 4 children and supporting James and on this crazy mission to hold on to a farm that we very nearly lost. Both our families are farmers, have been since records began in the church records, 600 years plus in the church records. We know nothing else. It's in our blood. But I think growing up, I wanted to do, like I said in that introduction, I wanted to maybe escape that bind, because it is all consuming. It's not a job, as you all know. It's a vocation, a way of life.
One of the things that I found so interesting and so beautiful about the book is I feel like there are a lot of really great books and great writers who write about the actual farmer, the actual rancher, the person who's out on the land doing the work. And this book is really a celebration and a very clear look at some of the, I think you call it like the unseen work that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of times is not romanticized. If anything, sometimes people dismiss it as not real work. And you just write about it in a way that is very raw, but also has humor. And it makes it very clear how hard you work and how important and how much of a responsibility it is, not just to your family, but even to the greater environment. Why did you choose to focus in on that particular part of it?
Well, Ed, I think I've grown up with my mum and my grandma as my role models of, like, those are the women that they look after everything. They hold everything together. They hold a huge amount of all the paperwork and all the doing of family life and all the tasks. And when do we ever see those women in stories in books? We don't. They're invisible, yet we're surrounded by incredible women here that do the doing. Yay! And I wanted to just absolutely put that front and center. Yes, it's a personal story, but it's to celebrate those people that do that take on that care, that emotional load of the family. And to me, they're the heroes in my life and should be celebrated. Sack the influences in its modern world. My goodness. So that's why I chose to focus in on and really reflect on my choices as why I'm doing this. And as I wrote it, it became more and more clear to me that this was and is the most important work in the world. So I'm a huge advocate for eating well around a family table. Like, let's all look after each other by having conversations about. We were hearing earlier in a session this morning about succession planning for farms and ranches and how we leave things for the next generation. If we don't have good family relationships, we can't open up those conversations. So that starts for me when the kids are in the high chairs or they're nursing at the table with you and you're sitting them up and you're talking about what we're eating and how we're looking after each other, how each other's day's been. So that's why I put that thread right through in that's so important.
It's so important. It's such a universal theme. And it was really interesting to me when I was preparing for this, reading it through the lens of Old Salt, because there's so much overlap between what y'all are doing and what is happening here in Helmville, from the lens of food, regenerative agriculture, caring for the land, family, community, business, economics. And as I was rereading the book, there was this one chapter, I said, she could be talking about Old Salt here. And so I was wondering if you could read that section.
I'd love to, yeah.
You get to hear more of Helen's beautiful voice instead of mine.
Living on a farm has helped me to see that we all have a responsibility when we shop to support good farming. If we don't make this effort, we trap families like mine in bad and unsustainable forms of farming. The industrial farming practices I hate that are damaging to the planet are driven by our insatiable desire for ever cheaper food. This gets pushed onto all farmers, and then when it becomes visible, when farmers everywhere try to compete by keeping chickens cooped up or pigs in dirty concrete pens or cows that don't even go outside, many people dislike it. If you want something better for animals and the land, you need to support farmers to do better. And better has a real cost that someone has to pay. Access to good, healthy food for me is a basic human right. But it isn't solved by making farming worse in a race to the bottom. There's also a growing body of evidence that foodstuffs from healthy soil and good farming systems provide better nutrition. Our shopping, cooking and eating are like votes for better farming and better health. Seeing food as medicine and starting to think about things like our gut microbiome has changed my mind about supporting organic food. We're essentially made from what we eat and affected in turn by what our food eats. Yes, doing the right thing is really difficult, sometimes impossible. If you're struggling for money and you aren't an expert on farming, but for those of us who can do better, and that is a considerable number of us, we have a duty to and must make this effort. And there are smart ways to eat well by buying inexpensive cuts of meat and batch cooking and using up all our leftovers. Not everyone has these skills or knowledge, so we have to find ways to help each other.
I thought that was just really almost like a perfect summary of Old Salt. And so a question about that. You went on this amazing book tour. She was on the Daily Show. She was on all the Good Morning America type, big national shows, and the book sold like crazy. And so I'm curious if you've had been able to tell it all, like somebody, say, who lives in New York City that may not have any connection on a daily basis to the land. Have these ideas spread? Have they soaked through? Have you seen any kind of aha moments?
Yeah, I get messages from a lot of women, some men. Some men read this, give me a hug and say, thanks for writing this, Helen. It's helped me understand what, my partner's doing or, how. But I get letters and messages from women across the world that say, thank you for writing a book that makes me feel seen and heard and valued. And they're really emotional, personal messages from women that don't want to be on a stage ever. And I must say, I'm really uncomfortable being on a stage. I'd far rather be in the audience listening to a brilliant speaker. But I know that as farmers, and as farming women, that we're less than 1% of the population. We've got such a tiny, tiny voice. We need to use our voices. We need to share the messages about good food and farming and ranching. And I think opening up on social media and doing the book, people have connected with me. And it's not a particular story about farming as much as it is about women and struggles and the challenges of choices that we have. We're expected to, we're told we can have it all, and what does that look like? Oh, it just means that we have to do it all. We have to go out there. We have to, get use our education. Absolutely. Get a degree, go out there, get the career. Also figuring out how to have a family, look after the children, feed the children, run around, keep fit and healthy, have a friendship group, have amazing holidays. And it's just it's too much. My way of coping with that was that I was going to go, stick the modern world over there. I don't really want that. I don't want what society tells me to have in this day and age. I want to look after my family the best I can. I want to feed them well. And I'm not that important in all of this. And that is it's a strange thing to think in a world that tells women we have to, and men, we all have to be shiny individuals. The autonomy of self, it's the most important thing. I don't think it is. And coming from a farming family, we all have to work together as a team, and this team is stronger than the individual. And that is absolutely obvious at Old Salt here today, that this team that's put this together, this team of Old Salt Cooperative that works together, these amazing individuals in their own, but they're working together for a vision, and how we can all work together at regenerating land and looking after each other, community efforts, is massively important to me. So I don't know what the question was, but hey, we're still here.
Well, one of the things that I loved about the book, another kind of universal theme that I thought was everybody needs a lot more of these days, is empathy and compassion, both for ourselves and for other people. And there's several different threads of the book. I mean, there's parts with your family of becoming to understand where they came from and why they act the way they do. And then there's empathy you were able to develop for strangers that maybe you thought had it easy. And so could you just talk a bit about that process of developing empathy and how it's been so important for you? Because that was a big part of the book that I really took a lot away from.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So going back to thinking about where I've come from was the starting point of that. And I wrote a story about my mum. My mum grew up not from a farming family, my dad is, but she didn't have an easy time as a child. When she was 6, her baby sister died of meningitis, and she was the 4th child. And I didn't know much about Mum's story until I started doing a bit of a dive into writing and asking her questions. And I think every family's got things that are hard, that they don't want to share, and you don't learn about. You sort of find the pieces of the jigsaw in different conversations over several years, and then you start putting it together. And then you figure out, well, maybe that's why those conversations are hard, or Mum might flare up and get angry about something to do with something that I didn't understand before why. And Mum had to be really self-sufficient as a 6-year-old, because her mum probably was undiagnosed with depression, grief, she basically shut herself off from parenting this little 6-year-old because her baby had died, her fourth child had died. And so when I started to realize that Mum and I's turbulent time in my teenage years was probably because she hadn't had the skills and she hadn't been parented in a particular way that gave her lots of love and kindness and care, I think that was like a light bulb going off for me and saying, okay, I need a bit more empathy with my mum here. I was being quite a challenging teenager. I wanted to, push the boundaries as now my teenagers do. But yeah, finding that empathy came as I became a young woman, became a mum myself. I didn't understand what Mum had gone through, and then I think what you're referring to, there's a story in the book about me with children at the school gates where I'm dropping them off and I'm absolutely at like exhaustion level. My hair is lank and I've got the worst clothes on and I feel really grotty, and I'm looking after these kids and trying to get them into school on time, and there's, toothpaste and all sorts of things to clean up, and we're late. And I see this mum running, and I see her, she's going for a run, and she does this every morning. And I think, wow, she looks so fit and incredible and active, and like, how the hell does she keep this together? I am falling to pieces here. I have X, Y, and Z to do when I get back home. I'm a mess. I don't feel my best. And I'm kind of like, I hate her. You can imagine the running gear, the fancy trainers. She's athletic. She's glowing. And at this point, I'm like, I've got to find it in me to kind of be kind, Helen, be kind, And I know I don't. I just kind of resent her life, and I think, how is she doing this? And then I there was a little church service around the Harvest Festival time, and she's handing out some flyers. And I take one of these flyers, and it says about donating to the charity, because she's running the Berlin Marathon to raise money for premature death, because she'd had a set of twins and one baby had died. And I didn't know that when I saw her running. I just saw this young, fit, active mum that made me feel bad. And when I realized she'd lost her baby and running was the way she could cope with this, that was her, that's the only way she could cope. She was going out and just going to do something every day. And I thought, we all need that. I was kicking myself afterwards. I was like, I should have taken a bit more of a pause. And I wrote the story, and I just, if we all we don't know what each other's going through. That's the point. We don't know. We haven't lived a day in each other's shoes. So let's all be kind and compassionate. We need that more than ever right now. We're all people trying to do the best we can by each other. We're trying to raise families. We're trying to work jobs. We're trying to pay the bills. And we're coping with losses. We're coping with personal struggles, family dynamics, and just having that bit more empathy and compassion. I think I learned it through writing that bit more. I've always had a sense of kindness, opening the door for strangers, helping each other, smiling at the cashier who's, serving you. The thing for me is the goodness in people is how they treat people that are there to help make your day a bit better. And let's all have a bit more of that, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's so many parts of the book that I got great calm and solace from and wisdom. That was one. And another one was you write so perfectly about the chaos of having small kids. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and about once a week I'll look at my wife and I'll be like, what are we doing wrong? What is happening? We've above average intelligence. We're doing, and this is chaos. And so, and so when I read about yours, it made me actually laugh and feel better, because I think everybody has a version of that when you've got kids. I would guess that as you've been on the tour and as you've been, people have read this book, people come to you and ask for advice. And so what do you tell people?
I'm still figuring it out.
Because now that I have all your contact info, I might be reaching out. It's crazy. What do I do? It's like, what do you tell people? Because I think everybody's in different stages of life. But what's your advice?
So a friend told me a story about a French woman that had 4 arms. And that just summed it up. It's like, if I could have that some days, I would just be so happy to just like multitask that bit more. But none of us can multitask. We can only just focus on the one thing at the time. And sometimes the day is just firefighting. My only thing is just to say, don't try and do too much. Let's stop putting so much on our shoulders. Let's say no to things sometimes. And part of the farming that we're doing and leads into this, changing our methods of quite sort of conventional, kind of regular farming, commodity farming. We've gone much more down the route of regenerative practices. We breed livestock to sell, like breeding bulls and breeding rams, and we specialized on that. We are taking the slog away from the farming and giving ourselves more rest and more chance to do events and travel, and we've got, good support at home to do that. The juggle is real, but we're very lucky. We've got a 17-year-old daughter at home that is a farmer through and through. She's really capable. She's running the operation at the moment. She's got the electric fences to manage. It's actually really hot at home. I'm quite I don't know what we've done. We've brought regular English weather to Montana and left the sunshine back there. But yeah, we've got the dogs. She's running them out. She's checking the flock every day. And just let's say no to some things is probably one of my biggest things in advice-wise rearing kids. And just stop trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm also interested to hear you got to the ranch last night. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know you're probably only about 24 hours in, but your thoughts on Montana, your thoughts on this community, how it compares, how it's similar or different to everything you're doing.
It's absolutely breathtaking to drive down that track into this landscape. All the landscape. We were lucky enough to arrive on Tuesday and go up to Glacier National Park and go into the Sun Road. I'm still recovering from the steep drops and the views. It was blew my mind. I think I've got altitude kind of. So we arrived here last night. We drove in to the most stunning setting, as you'll all agree, I'm sure. But what my husband saw first of all was those cows over there. And he was absolutely not interested in where we were staying for the evening, what food was around, where the festival, what facilities. He basically got out the car and legged it down the field as fast as he could to see the cattle. And he is more than happy to do it, being amongst those cows. He's been down this morning as well to check on the herd because, it's got... But my thoughts on just being here is the bird life is incredible. We've got some wonderful people down there that can tell you all about the birds here. They've been super kind with Tom, helping him fill out some papers and do a word search on all the different species. But nature and farming, to me, aren't separate. It's not like, let's have wilderness over there and let's have farming over here. It can be both. We can integrate both. And it's not only healthier for the land, the cattle, the livestock, it's healthier for ourselves because what we're eating from this land is just phenomenally good for us. And that's like the bedrock of all good things. Good food, good family, good connections. So it's a real joy to be here. I can't quite pinch myself and believe we're in Montana having this conversation. I've been thinking about doing this for quite a few months.
Well, thank you to Cole for making it happen. We were talking on the Cole and I were talking about potential panelists, and the Rebanks came up as a name, but I wasn't sure it would happen, but here we are. So I'm very, very glad to be here. Back to your writing and your writing style. One of the things I was amazed with is that you're very, very clear about how challenging things can be, both from raising all the crazy kids like we all know about, to financial struggles, to just the ups and downs that come in everybody's life. But I think most people are embarrassed to talk about it, or they don't want to talk about it. And you talk about it in a very real way that's both, it was instructive to me. Like, I learned a lot, but it never comes off as complaining or woe is me, or like you're angry about it. I mean, there are times where you'll get your temper flared up like I do all the time, but it doesn't have a complaining tone. And I'm just curious how it may just be your personality, but how were you able to write so beautifully and so clearly about things that are very, very hard without it coming off as complaining? That was one of the main things that you constantly throughout the book, you say, I chose this life. This is my choice, the good and the bad. But I'd love to hear just your thoughts about keeping a positive attitude in the midst of the chaos.
I think it's a summing up of my character, really, in how I've shared as a writer that internal world that we all have. We all have those thoughts day to day, don't we? That inner voice. And I've just used that on the page and poured it out. And the writing process for me started in 2020. So the book's been out for just under 2 years now, but it started in that year where we all experienced life quite differently, weren't we? COVID times, where we're all at home. Nobody was living in that frenzied kind of way we seem to have got back into, which I just would like to push away again a bit more, where we're doing all of the things all of the time. And so that year was a more reflective year. It was, let's take our foot off the gas and just kind of be at home, look after each other as best we could. And the writing process was very much that introverted, go into myself, think about choices. And I think as a farmer's wife, my life, like, it's about the kids and the family. And as I said before, it's about sacrifice. And that isn't a word we like to embrace much in 2025 as a society. We're all watching the latest TV shows and movies and celebrity focus and influencers and social media. And I don't buy into a lot of it. I'm not that interested. I'm more interested in, have you been well fed today? Have you had enough rest? Where have you traveled from? Let's look after the basics with each other. That's super, super important to me. And it's not about, this is quite uncomfortable being on the stage, really.
Yeah. There's a line in the book that you've already hit on a few of these topics, but there's a line that I think is very powerful where you say, moms can change the world.
Oh, yes.
I think that's such a powerful word. And
I think mums can change the world.
They definitely can change the world. Can you just expand a bit on that? I mean, you need to read the whole book. Everybody needs to just buy the book immediately. But
he's the best, isn't he? Yeah. He's absolutely my best cheerleader. Mums can change the world. There you go. I think the person who does the cooking, the shopping, the cooking, the caring, has the biggest influence on that is a huge responsibility. How you spend your money. And James and I sort of debate about this, about, what's the most important thing? Is it the individual in the family and that family unit, how we spend our money on what kind of food and farming we have and what kind of landscape we have and how much nature we have? I think, yes, we have individual agency in how we spend our money and how we use our votes and who we vote for that is going to deliver those things. And he is more, again, of we need structural change. And I let him speak about this on Sunday. He's going to do a pasture walk. We're going to do an event together. But we tussle between, yes, we need structural changes. We need redistribution of wealth. We need all sorts of things sorting out to make it, to take the crap off our shelves, excuse my language. All those supermarkets are full of junk that is slowly killing us. Those ultra-processed foods need to come off the shelves. We do need that. But I think the mums, whoever that is, it doesn't have to be a traditional mum-dad family setup. It can be any family setup. Whoever doing that role of that caring work, that unseen work, they have a lot of power there. And I think they need supporting more. I think they need patting on the back more. They need celebrating. They need championing. They need rewarding and just cheerleading. And yeah, we can, because how we raise our children for the next, we keep talking about the next generation. They need to know how to do the basics. They need to know how to cook, to sew, to mend things, to make things, to fix things, to grow things. And whoever's parenting them needs to help them learn. We need to know about all of the amazing wildlife we've got, how to raise livestock and care for it, how to support farmers to do that. It all comes down to education and parenting well and kindness.
And curiosity. I feel like you make a big point of that you're always trying to learn new things, and that curiosity really drives so much of what you do.
Yeah, we're big book readers in our family. We're
equal book nerds here. Well, I'd love to open it up for questions from the audience. We're going to put this on my podcast, so I've got a mic, and maybe I'll hand that out, and then you can ask the question in that. Hold on a second.
I've spotted another English person.
Do you know what? I came a bit disappointed because I thought I had quite of a niche here. I thought I was the only beef and sheep farmer from the northwest of England. And then I bump into these guys 40 minutes down the road. And I'm just like, how has this happened? Honestly, unbelievable. But anyway, I'm not quite sure this question makes sense. I've rewritten it a few times. Now I can't even quite read my own handwriting. But I said, was there, a time in your life when you were going down this path that you least wanted and didn't pursue the creative life that you dreamt of, where you sort of resented or almost like regretted it? Because I have this fear of sort of regretting a life that you think you might want to lead, and then you see it going past you in someone else's life, that sort of thing. Or did you believe that you would be able to find ways to express that sort of creativity in other ways? Because I'm not quite sure when you started writing, or whether you just wrote the whole way through, or, that sort of holding on to that purpose, or did you just feel that this new life brought you a new sense of purpose as such?
Oh, gosh. There's a lot in that, is it? There's a lot.
Sorry about that.
There's
I've got a lot going on in my head.
We could have a good hour just talking that through,
You should start a podcast, and you can just ask people questions.
Coming after your job, Ed.
Was there a point where I might have, looked at things and resented that I didn't choose a different path? Is that kind of where we're going to start with? There's been moments where I've looked at things and gone, hell, this is a lot. This is not... I'm not having a good time right now. Yeah. And I've written about it. There's moments in the stories where we're not getting on in a marriage, where things are just a bit, hard to, And I think by digging in and learning more about each other and figuring out why we might be acting in certain ways, and understanding each other's roles a bit better, that's helped massively. Writing it has helped me share what my role has been, and what, explaining that to James. I think that's been, he's always known it. He's always been a massive champion and support of me. But yeah, it's not always easy ride. I've never, ever wanted to do anything different than look after my family and be a good mum. And there's been points where I thought, I might dabble in some, try and be a teacher, go and have a look at that course. And I was like, but nobody's going to be there to pick the kids up. And how are they, who's going to do that? And who's going to do that mountain of washing and sort that out and do the errands and all sorts of things? And I'm like, actually, stick that to one side, that teaching idea, because I've got my hands full here. I'm actually, what is a mum? Teacher, a nurse, emotional support, cook, chef. I wear all those hats every day. I don't need somebody else to pay me to do those things. I need society to value mums. Mums are incredible. So, yeah, I haven't ever... There's moments I've resented, gone, oh, this is too much, as we all do. But the bigger picture is this work is important. I value it. I care about everything that I'm doing. And I want the world to see it. It's there in the book.
And we won't spoil it, but at the end, there's a real great kind of dive into the word mundane. And it's unexpected, and I feel like it's near the end of this. But you have to buy the book to get to that part.
Isn't he brilliant?
Got to buy it. Start strong-arming people. Any more questions? Here we go. Thank you for passing that out.
Thank you. First of all, hi to Ed as a fellow Southerner. The accent
nice.
probably shows. Yeah, you thought you were Southern, but... Helen, thank you for your authenticity in your message. How do we encourage and entice more young people to lead this lifestyle when we are currently fed messaging that is just so materialistic and leading down a path that's not natural or even one that people tend to inherently desire, but it's what we're being sold? I think so often we are buying into this idea before we even know what it is for this lifestyle. Yeah. So how do we get back to our roots? How do we encourage the young people?
It's a lovely question. How do we do more to encourage people to live more in tune with our roots and what we inherently want? We need stories. We need better stories to connect us all. We need to share stories. We need to use this evil social media to our gain and share better narratives about good lives well lived. And we mentioned Wendell Berry at the start and his work and his legacy of people on the land, people looking after each other, living quiet lives, to me is really powerful. I am a big fan of Mary Oliver's poetry. This One Wild and Precious Life. I feel like I'm living it right now by not the shiny bits of getting on a plane and coming to Montana. It was quite exhausting, the journey. It's not shiny and fabulous, is it? Let's be honest, queuing up in airports and such like and being crammed into tiny seats. But when I'm at home and I walk around the farm and I take the dogs out and I soak up, the green, I want to share that with as many people as I can. So I do use my social media. A lot of it is me filming the dogs running around on the fields or how long the grass is. I mean, that was a joy to arrive and see in these meadows, fields. I don't know if you call them meadows. We're a bit more
whatever you want.
long grasses, full of plants, full of biodiversity. Sharing good stuff is kind of my answer to that. How do we encourage young people? Through good food as well. I mean, aren't we treated today with food cooked on fires by Sarah and her team? That looks amazing. Let's share the goodness of how it makes us feel and how it nourishes us.
I've recently started reading some of Wendell Berry's fiction, like Jayber Crow and Andy Catlett, and a lot of your writing. It reminded me of the real life version of Port William and just the humanity and the sweetness and the community, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
That was a great part of your book. No more questions? I don't want to
We went to stay with Wendell and Tanya. It was amazing.
Can you talk about that?
Well, it was just absolutely. We walked into their home, sat down around the kitchen table, and felt like we were with family. We were treated like family from the get-go. It was the most incredible, warm home cooking, sharing stories. Wendell said to James, "So you love your life, so why the hell are you here?"
What would you say is the biggest, I know this is hard, but a biggest takeaway from Wendell that you and James have had, whether that's in your writing style or in your approach to agriculture? What would you say is the biggest takeaway from knowing him?
For me, Wendell's message is about noticing the small things, and affection. It all turns on affection. Yep. And that there isn't anything else for me. That is as simple as that.
Well, I am curious. You mentioned Wendell, but I'm always looking for really good book recommendations from folks. And you and your husband have created a ton of great book recommendations. But You said Mary Oliver. Who else are some of your influences? What are books you would recommend that folks read that have, whether it's with ag or family or motherhood?
I love just a really good memoir, a good story about somebody's life. I guess that when we talked earlier before about honesty and why mine's sort of, it's direct, it's honest, it's about the grittiness of life. I'm trying to think who writes like that, but I'm just like, I love to know what's behind the scenes of somebody's life. I'm really nosy. I want to know what it feels like for somebody else. That builds empathy. I'll read anything, any memoir, anybody that's opened up. And if it just turns the page and keeps me going, you put me on the spot there. I should probably have 100 lists of names of books.
Well, it's hard when you read as much as you and I do, It's hard just to pick one. The thing one of the things I loved about the book is this evolution of you from a small child to where you are now. And there's a great part in the book where you go off on really kind of your first big adventure solo when you go to France as a teenager. And this might be a hard question, but I wonder what yourself now today, what would you tell that young lady? Because she was completely different than where you are. I mean, that was it seemed like a real transformational point where you really you gained a lot of confidence. You became comfortable being a little bit different from everybody. Up until that point, there was kind of this path you were supposed to be following that everybody around you followed. And that seemed like the point where you saw that there could be a different way. And so I'm curious, knowing you have kids about that age now, what would you tell that young lady?
Oh, God, to go back and tell yourself something when you're 16 years old, what would you say? I think to be kind to myself and not to put too much pressure on myself, to look like I've got it all together and I'm doing all sorts of things, and to ask for a bit more help. I didn't ask for much help. And when my mum read the book for the first time, she said, I wish I'd given you some more help when the girls were very little. Now, my girls are 19 and 17-year-olds now, and I think I thought I was supposed to handle it all and do it all and just juggle it. And Mum was around, but I didn't really cry for help. I kind of kept it quiet, that I was maybe on the edge of postnatal depression after Molly, and I was just like trying to cope, as we all do. And so I would tell that 16, 17-year-old, ask for help if you need it, and don't be ashamed to, because we're all stronger with each other, and we all need each other much more than we think. And that life is going to take lots of twists and turns, and it's going to be wild and a ride, and just hang on, and it's going to be better than you ever imagined.
Oh, you're the best. No, that's the best.
Sorry, I've gone now.
No. One other thing in my sales pitch, my relentless sales pitch for this book, is it's full of unbelievable recipes. Can you talk about cooking? And out of here, is there a favorite recipe you have?
I cook all the time. I'm always thinking about food and what everybody's eating. And my repertoire is very basic. It's very good, honest, home cooking, roast beef, Yorkshire puddings, casseroles, stews, soups. Straightforward things that I can make without thinking. And I can go to the fridge and go, okay, we've got da-da-da, that's a meal. Da-da-da, that's a meal. What's in the cupboard? Pull it together somehow. I found writing the recipes the hardest bit of all, because you actually have to sit and think, okay, what quantity of this do you put in this? And I was lucky to have a recipe tester, which was really, really brilliant, because I was able to send her everything and she made it all and checked my quantities. And there's a gingerbread recipe in there that she said, she sent me an email back, Helen, was this supposed to have flour? Like, of course it has flour. I just didn't write it down. Writing down recipes is so tedious. It's my least favorite bit of the book. But then the whole book started with the idea that I would write a mum's recipe book to leave as a legacy for the kids, so that they would, if any of them ever left home, which is not looking likely at the moment, they've all got it too good. If they do or did, then they would have a collection of Mum's recipes, and I thought that was a kind of lovely legacy kind of thing that I could do. So favourite recipes, the gingerbread's a great one. It has got flour in it, and there's lots of home baking. My grandma was a really good home baker, so there's cakes galore in there, and we all love sweet treats. But we like, sweet treats where we know what the ingredients are, not weird lines of chemical things on the backs of the packets.
You've been so generous with your time, obviously. And is there anything I missed, any way you'd like to kind of wrap this up? I mean, the book is amazing. It really made me feel better about a million different things. And so thank you for writing it. But any kind of parting words, any way you want to wrap this up, anything that I blatantly missed that you did want to talk about?
Oh, Ed, that's really kind. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk about it, to share my stories here, to share it with such a warm, lovely, kind audience. You're all just brilliant. I'm around. Come and have a chat with us. Come on the pasture walk. Come and, on Sunday morning, we're going to talk about a farming marriage on Sunday morning after that. That's going to be an interesting conversation. No, I think we've covered so much. For me, I wrote the book for me. The fact that it's reached Montana is wild. And I'm really grateful, honoured, happy, overwhelmed a little bit. Might need to go and have a little drink after this. And just,
You've earned it.
But thank you.
Yes, thank you all so much. Thank you, Helen.
Hey, it's Ed again. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I know your time is valuable, so it means the world that you spend it listening. If you want to support the podcast and help it to continue to spread and grow, there are a few ways you can help. Number one, pass it along to a friend or share it on social media. Word of mouth recommendations are the most powerful way for ideas to spread, so I'd love it if you could share the podcast with a few pals who might enjoy it. Number two, you can go to Apple Podcasts and give it a 5-star review. Good reviews encourage the Apple overlords to suggest the podcast to others. So there's a link in the notes if you'd be so kind as to give it 5 stars. Number 3, you can support the podcast financially via Patreon, and there are exclusive benefits for those who do, including a monthly behind-the-scenes newsletter, Mountain and Prairie stickers, live and recorded video chats with podcast guests, and much more. Number 4, I've also got 2 emails that I send out. The first is my weekly email called Good News from the American West, which I send out every Wednesday. It's only positive news, something we can all use a little more of these days. And my other email is my bi-monthly book recommendations email. One email every other month with 5, 6, 7, or 8 books that I've recently read and highly recommend. The thousands of people on both of these lists will vouch for me. No spam or other funny business. And number 5, finally, check out my online store for Mountain and Prairie stickers, shirts, and coffee mugs. I've got some really cool designs from Western artists with more on the way, so head to mountainandprairie.com/shop to check it all out. I'd love to connect with you. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, so look me up on either of those platforms by my name or through the links on my website. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for your support.